So, um, what do you do right now, and how did you get into this line of work?
What I do right now is I teach CBI, which stands for Community-Based Instruction, at Deer Valley High School in Antioch, California. How I got there, long path. So I was in the restaurant business for 40 years. I worked for a couple companies, 20 years each. The last one I worked for was Nordstrom. Worked in their espresso bars as well as their cafes. The last position I had there was I'd go around the district and make sure that the espresso bars are doing okay or if they needed any help. I also, towards the end, I was helping out because my son was not born deaf, but he went deaf when he was 2 years old. Right after that, at the time, they had a new device called a cochlear implant. We got special permission because he was so young. At that time, you had to get special permission to get a cochlear implant. We got that for him, so I had to learn sign language still, even though he could hear. And so I started working in the school district that he was in, being an AHI. So we got a lot of letters going on here, CBI, AHI, and AHI is Assistant to the Hearing Impaired. So you would think that I would handle deaf students, but the first student I had could hear perfectly well, couldn't talk. So he used sign language, right, to communicate. And so I would interpret for him to the teacher, and that was in middle school. So I was working in Nordstrom 5 days, or I was working there at school for 5 days a week, and then I'd work at Nordstrom 3 or 4 more days towards the end. I was working there full time, and then I kind of cut back a little bit, and then I was working 7 days a week. So I'd work definitely the weekends at Nordstrom, and then Monday through Friday at the school. Those were the minimum that I would work. Sometimes I'd work double shifts during the week. I did that for about 3 years. And then my wife explained to me, you need to pick one or the other. Well, I have done the other for 40 years, so let's try something new. And at 57, I was old. I'm older now. I decided to get my teaching credential. So then I was going to school, still working in that school district, but then I started working in my current school district, which is Antioch Unified. And so now I got my credential after about 1.5 years, and then flying got on permanently. So now I'm in community-based instruction. When I started with the district, I was in SH, which is a little bit different, which is in high school, and they asked me to work in the transition program, which is this program, and that was only supposed to be for a couple months until they found a new teacher. Well, 7 years later, we're still waiting for those 2 months to go by. So that's what I'm doing right now. So basically what got me into this line of work, which I think was the question, before I get too winded here, was my son going deaf, and he was in special ed, and I wanted to be part of that. So I was there kind of just to support him, even though he was not in my class. But it was just to see what he was going through and how they were teaching him, and then it grew into a new career. So I changed my careers at 59. I became a teacher, and here I am today.
Wow. Okay. I don't know, with you, I'm going to have to go through all the questions so I can do a sample of some
Absolutely.
answers. Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to go through the line here. Who's the most influential person in your life right now?
That is tough. It has to be two people. It has to be my kids. I have a daughter who's 23. She's in her senior year of college. I have my son who's in a transition program, but he's also taking classes at Diablo Valley College. So I would say those two people influence me the most. I'm just so proud of both of them. I mean, especially, not especially my son, but my son is, he's come a long way. And people think that students that we teach, whether it be in CBI or in SH or whatever, somehow are different than anybody else. Not at all. So those two people influence me to keep on doing what I'm doing, probably more than anybody, and my wife. But I mean, so I'd say my kids,
Audrey
both of them.
Yeah. Audrey and Bo should hear your answer.
Yeah, they would say, nah, you're blowing smoke.
I know. Okay. What else do you want to learn?
Okay, boy, that has to be one of the toughest questions you can ask somebody. There's so much to learn, especially when you're doing what I do. I would say how I can better impact not just the students I work with, but their families too, and how I can work with the families together to make the students successful. And that is something that you learn on the job pretty much. And you learn with each different family. But working with the families is probably the biggest thing, and working with the students. But you have to get that 50-50 partnership in there. If the family's not on board, you're not going to be successful.
Very good. Okay.
So learning how to work with the families is probably primary right now. And it has been since the beginning.
Okay. The next three are quite different questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is your greatest struggle right now?
My greatest struggle right now is, let's go back to the families. I think a lot of times the vision that people from the outside have of special ed, I think is a tough struggle. For some people, they think our students are broken, and they're not. You have to find out what their strengths are, work on their strengths, and they're going to be successful out in the community. So you have to get rid of that vision or that impression that special ed is special and that these students are not going to be successful and these students can't be what they call, normal, I guess. And you have to breaking through that is one of the toughest struggles I have. As you know, it's community-based instruction, so we have to go out in the community and we have to talk to employers and we have to say, hey, we have these students quite capable. I mean, this program has 65, 67 students. I would say a good 40, 50 of them definitely could be out in the workforce right now with no problems at all. You have to convince people of that. So it's kind of changing the image of not just community-based instruction or an adult program, which we are, but the image of special ed students in general. That is probably the hardest struggle I have. Sometimes I take it a little bit too personally, and sometimes I get a little aggressive in my approach. But it's because people aren't giving the students a chance, and that's all they want is a chance. It's like a lot of people in the world. If you give people a chance, you'd be surprised. You'd be really surprised. And people come up to me and go, well, sometimes the students aren't motivated. And I said, you'd be surprised because they are motivated. And when they get that first paycheck, whether it be $5 or $50, all of a sudden their whole image of themselves changes. Their whole image of the community changes. Their whole image of where they fit into the family and the school changes. And it's all for the better. And you see where you kind of been going like this, kind of going like this, all of a sudden it goes like this. So the progress really jumps up quite a bit. I've seen that probably 10, 20 times.
The next questions are actually sometimes can be not necessarily related to work. Actually, some of them may not be. So, in what ways have you been disappointed in life?
I think my biggest disappointment is I never think, we as a program and me as a teacher, when the students leave here, did we do enough for them? Did we do all we could to make them successful? Did we get them that resume that they can walk out the door with? Did we get them to enough jobs where they can kind of decide what they really want to do in life? Did we give them the tools to be successful? And I think every time a student graduates and we go to graduation, it's just an emotional thing because some of these students we've been with for 4 years. I have a student that's leaving in December because she's aging out and I don't know what I'm going to do because she's been with me for 4 years and she's great. She's doing good. She's got a job. But you always wonder, And I'm not saying it's really a disappointment, but you've just got to put it on yourself. Did I do enough? Did the program do enough? Did we reach out to the family? Did we get the goals right on the student? So I wouldn't say it's a disappointment, but it's one of those things that I really struggle with. And sometimes I see students and they leave and then they'll call. I've had a couple of them call like 6 months later and they go, I really missed my time in CBI, because they go to another program, which is a post-22 program, and they're just, it's not what CBI was. Right? So I think that's a disappointment for me, that they can't continue to progress, because those, not in all programs, but in some programs, they just don't carry on that philosophy, I guess.